and welcome back. This is the Poet is a Human with the Philosopher Dunamis on this week's episode number 4, Fight for Freedom. Please be sure to hit that like button on your way in, please. And consider subscribing if you like what you hear to keep up with our episodes on YouTube and give us a follow on X.
Fightcast is here to empower individuals to live healthier, master their finances, pursue their dreams, and inspire others through self-awareness and global impact. Remember, this is for entertainment and educational purposes only, and not financial advice.
Philosopher Dunamis, how are you?
I'm great. It was a good Christmas. Great Christmas season. How about you?
Doing well, doing well. It was great Christmas as well. A lot of good times with the family. It was a nice reset and reflection. I really like the holidays for those reasons, and it's nice. It's nice to just we got a lot of great things coming, man, and so it's really dope to share this with everybody. And
We
uh
do. We're almost to 2025, man. It's almost
yeah,
here.
poof. So let's get into it. I think this episode. Not. I feel like I'm gonna say this with all of them, but I feel like this one's really dope. The fight for freedom, and I think the reason why I feel like this one's a little bit more special because when I think about the fight for freedom, I think about what is the opposite of
Oh
freedom.
yeah.
So putting that into context, that really gives me that spectrum of okay, I can define this, I can iron this, I can polish this. So what are you thinking with this one?
Yeah, freedom is this is pretty foundational, man. This subject is important for us to talk about. There were many other things that we could have talked about, but I believe this was really important. And you're right, the opposite of it, the force that we face, and we've discussed this offline, but there's there's this counter force to freedom that exists in the world. And I think a lot of us don't want to recognize the fact that I grew up believing that the United States, for example, that the people that were in the government genuinely, the government itself was genuinely a force for good, and genuinely cared about the people in the United States. And I know this is a pretty harsh path that I'm going down here, but to say that I think that understanding that there are genuinely people in charge that don't have our best interests, and they desire to surveil you, to control you, and if you're not with the program, they want to cancel you. And those forces in the world are that want to maybe control somebody's speech, would maybe want to control their movement, keep them from being able to spend their money, or whatever it is. Um, Even if it's something more subtle, like
With
if
speech.
with just even influence, though, like
Yeah.
if you go and make somebody feel uncomfortable because of their speech, that's sort of that same act of aggression that's being taken in the world. And that counterforce to freedom is what we need to recognize and fight against. That it's not our place to control other people, right? But
Mhm.
more than that, it's now it's not just enough. In the past, I felt like it was always enough for me to say, I'm going to be a force for good in this world by not coercing others, right? By not being aggressive and trying to control other people. I'm letting them live their own lives, letting them be free and do what it is. But a part of what this project is about is recognizing that that's not enough anymore, that there are people that are doing bad things to other people. And if we don't step up and say something about it, if we don't step up and help to wake up the masses to the fact that coercion and aggression are not good. That there are things that governments and people do to hold other people back. That's the problem.
Right. And understanding that too is the individual. And that's the biggest thing I want to put emphasis on. It's being able to tap back into the circle of freedom of speech, being able to think for yourself and being able to speak on your truths. You have to be able to sort through the cracks. And what we see a lot are just pathways of masses that go which way because of an influence that doesn't all the way make sense, but it makes sense enough at that time and moment that this is now been centuries of programming into a mass of people to think in ways where now it's just okay to fall into the pack. It's fine. It's okay to take the path of least resistance. It's totally okay. What does that really mean, though? What does that really mean? What type of value do you put into the term taking the path of least resistance into your actual life? What do those words actually mean? At what value? Because I can say that if I get into a bar fight or if I'm about to get into a bar fight and everybody's ready, boom, boom, boom. But at the end of the day, it's like, dude, listen, I've got a business, I've got family, I've got friends, I have obligations, I have things to do. I have a whole routine tomorrow. This is, hey, I'm going to go ahead and you got it, buddy. You got it, buddy. If I can make that, if I can, like, that's always going to be de escalation for me first in that space, taking the path of least resistance, right?
Yeah.
Versus, you know what? I'm just gonna play video games all day and not get a job. I'm gonna take the path of least resistance because I'm really close to beating this game right now. I'll apply for that job tomorrow. It's two different ways you can take that.
And that's why it's path of least resistance. I think there's yeah, exactly what you just said, because you can look at it from the point of view of not going out and doing anything with your life, but you can also look at it even in the sort of the Tao philosophy way of flowing like a river, around your obstacles and things like that. So there's ways to freedom is a flow, right? You should be able to flow in freedom, but the resistance to freedom of speech, freedom of movement, all of these things, they happen oftentimes, I think, because people are taking the path of least resistance in their minds. They think it's easier to take from other people than to create. It's easier to steal something that somebody's already worked hard for than to work hard yourself. And it's unfortunate that that idea exists anywhere in the world, but it does. And unfortunately, freedom is something that has to be fought for. It's not something that comes for free. It's not something that stays without being fought for. And we're probably coming to a point of time in history again where we have to be able to at least stand up and say no forcefully, and see where the chips fall.
Yeah, it's been a gamble. It's a gamble. It's been a gamble from the start. It has, and we've seen the dice roll so many different ways, man. It's everywhere, right? I mean, when you're looking into speech, it's even like so. Okay, so this is a segue into the next one. I feel like because I'm thinking about it, like as far as religion with speech, and you
Mhm.
think about it like that, and you think about the control that it has, but also the liberation in, within those parameters as well. And there's so many extremities with all of these things, right? Because the speech of all of this is crucial. And I feel like I feel like speech was a good one to hit first, because I feel like it could, it's going to be a pain point, because it's how we speak that ultimately, it's the start of the causality equation, right? So with religion, and I think about this too. I think about, for me personally, I think of a construct. I think of many ideologies, but I also feel like within those religions there is the duality of speech, because interpretation is key to all of this. Where's your heart with this, and what was it meant? What was meant to be said? I feel that religion, by design, in its definition, is designed to be different. On the other end of the stick, when you look at everything as a whole, there's one central point, there's one nucleus, and that's God. In every religion, there is a God. There's one center point. So when you try to divide that and say no, it's not even like, and I don't want to get smacked in the face with this one, because I don't want to be crass to say, oh, well, you're saying that my God's better than your God, because I know that on one end, there's going to be, and you can fight me about it in the comments, okay? But what I'm saying is that is ultimately what I get out of that, because you're already creating a division. You're already creating division. So by design, you're saying this is why I think this way, and this is why I feel like I'm closer, or I'm going to get where I need to get, because this is what I need to do, and this is because they tell me what to do. Like there's that control.
Yeah. I feel like we're starting to touch on these subjects that are gonna get some fights in the comments,
Yeah, fight me
there's
on it. Fight me on it. We encourage it. We encourage it.
we definitely encourage you to fight us in the comments. That's anything we're talking about. If it's controversial, if it rubs you the wrong way, we definitely don't care too much. Unfortunately we are going to speak our mind and say what we believe is true one way or the other, and we hope that reaches everybody in a good space. And if it doesn't, then it's good to get it out, man. It's good for us to talk about these things. It's good to disagree and have arguments. That's what freedom of speech is all about. We're really a more civilized and advanced species when we can get together and work out these problems, and put our heads together. And when you have to have diversity of thought in order to be able to have that. You have to have people that disagree, right? I could tell you that I believe that the Christian God is the only God, is the God, and the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And you guys can fight me on the comments on that one too. But at the same time, the interesting thing about it is, it really does, like, what matters is that we have the ability to disagree peacefully. We have the ability to discuss these things and disagree peacefully,
Right.
and assemble peacefully. And they're the cornerstones of the freedoms that we have. And I feel like we're in a dangerous place in society now, where whether it's the government or whether it's just individuals in this mass psychosis that we're in the United States now, it seems, but really all over the whole world, we have to learn how to get along, right? In order to be able to have those conversations that might be unpleasant with people that we don't agree with, right? But you have to still be able to have those conversations. We're all humans. We're all on this planet together, and there's going to be people that we don't like that have just as much right to be here as we do. I mean, for every single one of us, you know? And I don't know. I feel like I'm starting to ramble a bit now, but
No,
it is all about the love, man. It's about loving each other, and the opposite of coercion, the opposite of aggression is like sympathy and empathy, and we need a lot more of that.
right. We need an assembly of that. That was a pain point. I was listening and going into the freedom of assembly. And there's an obligation that goes into that. There's a level of responsibility with all of these freedoms. You
Mhm.
can take these so many ways. These are our freedoms. These are ours to protect. These are also our rights to practice. So the opposition, of course, could be the chaos of it. But knowingly creating that and saying that a little bit of that is needed, I can understand certain things like that too. I can. I'm not gonna because think about it, for example, we're creating a platform for people to have open dialogue and to openly agree, openly disagree, ultimately to have this conversation. But what I feel is the necessary of these assemblies is to create progression.
Mhm.
There's our obligation in building these structures and building these platforms is to have a level of evolution with this, right? This is these are important pieces to how we shape our world, and how we put these things together is very critical in how history unfolds into the eyes of somebody else who's looking into the textbooks. Because ultimately, this is a big one. The winners write the textbooks.
Yeah.
And for a very long time, the assembly of these said winners has been in this cross of just somebody who had more intent to control others just to keep them under them.
Yeah.
For what reason? It's
From their perspective, I'll say that there's this belief that this world is finite, that this world's resources are finite. From their perspective, not to play devil's advocate, you know, for the evil Illuminati of the world, but just to say that they think that there's not enough and they want to have it, and it's enough to keep others down so that they get a bigger share of what's available. But I personally think that's just completely the wrong way to think about this planet to begin with, because I think there's the false thinking is to begin by thinking that anything's finite. I mean, and you know, somebody might argue with that and say, oh well, there's only so much, you know, there is only so much oil in or so much gold or so much silver, you know, in the crust of the earth or whatever that is. And I would argue that there's probably as much as we can get out of it, and at some point we'll have a better ability to get more out of it. And there's nothing that I've seen that makes me believe that there's not an infinite amount of resources available on this planet and in this universe, in so much as we put our minds together and don't tear each other apart and hold each other down. It's the holding each other down that is what's keeping us from achieving so much. Yeah. So that's ultimately what I think gives me hope actually for our future, is because I think it's a mental problem then, right? It's not, there's not a limited amount out there for us to concern ourselves with fighting over. There's not, in so much as these communities now grow and put our energies together, there's, it's like when you know, when you see that all the people come together, 20 people come together and they lift a giant table, and there's like, you know, people standing on the table and all of that stuff. What that represents is that people, when they combine their energies, the force that you have is not a linear, it's not a linear progression. You know, 10 people could pick up a certain amount of weight, but all those 10 people helping together are able to lift much more. And there's an exponential growth that happens when there's stuff that we can't explain for whatever reason with science yet, right? Or with the math maybe, but it exists and we can observe it and we see it. And that's just an example of it. And I think that everything works that way, you know? And so I'm bullish on crypto. I'm bullish on these communities. I'm bullish on everything we're doing to incentivize and create more freedoms in this world. And so yeah, it's going to result in freedom of speech and freedom of religion and freedom of movement, um, and all the financial things. You know what I'm saying? Because the money is controlled right now by the wrong people.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And how we put that out too. How we essentially press it, freedom of press. You know, how we press these things out, and how we explain these things to the consumer ultimately,
Mhm.
and giving false this false these false notions of these products that are quote unquote gold, and what that is, and you know, really putting a nice coating right on top of that, just to look on the bottom and see that it's green,
Mhm.
which I think is kind of funny into playing into fake jewelry. But I'm gonna put that in one of my rap songs. I'm gonna put that in one of my rap songs. We definitely have a lot of opportunities in where we live, and you know, and I think that's one of the beauties of this country, and I definitely want our audience to know that, you know, this is for as dark as it can be, there is light, and there's always got to be that balance, and that's the biggest take on all of this. There, for dark there's light. What's done in the dark will come into the light. It's all an individual journey. It's all about being able to tap into that mindset of thinking for yourself truly, and knowing what it means to think for yourself, and really hone that ability, because that, to me, is it's a way for you to be able to stand on the Libra scale and really balance this out. You know, I know this sounds a little funny, and hey, if you guys feel that vibe too, what I'm about to explain, please give me a 100%. Give me a 100% in the comments, because I gotta know if I'm not the only one. Okay, but sometimes when I think that I'm off center, I think about the guy who walked on the balance beam from one side of Niagara Falls to the other side of Niagara Falls.
Oh
That
wow.
is that is a simple way for me to be like, oh, it's a way for me to bring it in every conversation and everything that I do. You know, I found one point of a reset where I'm able to just be like, if I fall off right here, man, I don't know what's gonna happen. It's not like panicky either, but that's just how I think about it. Just because the stakes are high, and that's how I like to look at it.
Absolutely. And yeah, on the stakes being high, and on the freedom of movement in particular, and this being a great country that we live in, um, we have the ability now to really move from state to state anytime we want to, right? Like I could drive up to Ohio tomorrow if I decided to, or you know, you could take a trip down to California or whatever it is. I know it's not that way in every part of the world. And so I know we talk about a lot of stuff that's very specific to the United States and America. Um, but we're in spirit, we're fighting for everyone. We're fighting for the rest of the world too. You know what I'm saying? We everyone needs to rise up in this fight together. It's not just something that needs to happen in the United States or in Texas or whatever it is. But and the stakes are high, man. Like it's life and death for everyone, many people all around the world with what this is. But what are your thoughts on how close we came? So when I think back to what happened through COVID and how close we came to needing vaccine passports to be able to travel cross state borders or go into a grocery store. And who knows if that's something that they try to do again in the future. But I mean, what kind of a dystopian nightmare does that seem like, that you would need to carry papers that have to do with your health status or something like that along with you, and that your freedom of movement could be taken away because maybe you catch a cold or something along those lines.
I think that that ties into privacy because now you're giving somebody access to anything besides that, because you know as well as I know that whenever we start to implement certain compliances in regards to like restrictions or for there's restrictions, like what's the other end of that too, because now you need access to this. Well, now you have access to my information. You already have access to my information, but now you have a direct access to this, and you can look at all of this, and then that could also, that could ultimately be a decision in something else. And then think about that from a higher status as well. I could play a factor into all of these things. So you're putting restrictions on civilian people who, let's just want to go a couple states over to go see their relatives. Then you're also looking at a CEO who's over in California who wants to get over to New York. You're looking at it from a lot of areas, but I just feel like the more unnecessary access you have for these things, on top of just, it's just, you're more prone to people having access to your stuff, people knowing more about you, being able to manipulate into a space where now you're compromised. So I I didn't really think then. I knew that we were in this pandemic, and I felt like a lot of these things were getting talked about, but I also didn't have full confidence that it would be enforced per se.
Hmm.
I felt like because we were like in this pandemic, but within the pandemic, we were like, wait a minute, wait a minute, hold on, wait a minute, what? And everyone's looking at this like, what really happened? And that was different from a lot of these other pandemics. Maybe just in my lifetime, I was able to experience it. I was able to see people like, wait a minute, I call BS on this one.
Yeah.
This is wild. This is different than some other stuff. And I think during those times it was more validated because they weren't as advanced in healthcare and technology to really scale what this was. They just knew it was just killing a bunch of people, and they were like, man, this is the black plague, like this this is wiping out masses right now. Yeah. For sure, we can't really explain what it is, um but that's my take on it. I think we definitely need to not take away that moment, because there's definitely going to be a protest within that, because that's very much a restriction of our freedom of movement.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's it woke a lot of people up to the possibility of what could happen. You know what I mean? It's the possibility that you could have your movement rights taken away, the possibility that we could have there were a lot of discussions around vax mandates, and I know the vaccine mandates happened in places in other countries. They happened here in the United States as well under the guise of individual businesses handing down those mandates. I don't think it was ever really considered legal here in the state of Texas, and so businesses weren't really allowed to do as much here as maybe they did in other places. But a lot of people got fired. They lost their jobs. Some people are suing now. But the actual medical aspect of this aside, let's just set that aside for a moment because that's controversial as well. But just the act of saying you have to have some medical procedure done, or you have to have this thing medically happen to you in order to be able to continue to live and survive in this country. Like, how scary can that be? I mean, that terrified me personally.
Yeah, man, that a do or die moment. Like, do you have faith and say, nah, maybe not, or or bite the bullet, and that could be the thing that saves you.
Mhm. Yeah, it's just difficult. It's a difficult thing to be put in a coercive situation like that. That's the difficult part. And I feel like we've had a lot of discussions today about other things. We'll just put you and I just right here. It's been an eventful day.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
there's been a lot of stress. I want to say just in general over the past few months in the world, and with the leading up to the election, and there's this almost kind of eerie quietness to the news lately. It seems like, leading up to what'll be the inauguration here soon, hopefully. But yeah, it's strange. It feels like there are people that are starting to crack under the pressure, and the pressure, I don't think I think this pressure has been applied by forces across the board. I think people are feeling like I think people are feeling stress, man. And maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just putting out a sense or of what I feel, but that aggressive nature of authorities, the what the government has done to the money supply here in the past few years, there's a lot that's been pushing down on people, and I feel like people are starting to crack under some of the pressure, and it's sad, and I hope we can just fight our way through it, man, because it's going to take supporting each other when we see these kind of things pop up, when we see the stresses and the struggles. um, we can help each other through it, you know, and and that's what I've seen too. I've seen people help each other through things, and so again, I'm optimistic, but it's something that we need to be aware of. I think so many times people go through life and just get in this lower consciousness state of just going to work and eating, your food each day, and maybe getting a workout in and all that stuff, but don't really sit and think about deeply, is this thing that I'm doing good or bad for this other person that I have a relationship with, whether it's a spouse, whether it's your kids, whether it's your parents, whether it's somebody at a HEB that you bump into, a gas station or a grocery store, or whether it's somebody who's actually got a conflict and a beef with you. I feel like it's important for us to start to be a lot more self-aware and recognize how what we do affects other people. And that's a responsibility I've started to take for myself, and I hope that you all join me in being a little bit more self-aware and try to consider another person higher than yourself from time to time, and see what maybe that can do, instead of the idea of coercion and aggression that holds another person down, because it's not just the government that does that. The only reason the government does that is because the government is full of people, and people do that. We do that
Mhm.
to each other. And so if we recognize it, we can maybe counteract it, right?
Mhm. It's a collective that does that. And think about what a shark is, and then think about what a billion fish could be all together
Hmm.
to ultimately eat the shark. Think about it like that.
You
And
eat the shark, man.
we eat the shark. And that's what the shark is, right? That's what it is. It's a makeup of this, it's a makeup of that, and that's no different than this. It's the same thing. And
It's
that's
the
where
apex predator, and the apex predator can harvest what it wants from anyone else, you know? And you're absolutely right that we can't be the important thing is not to be the victim, right? We don't want to be the victim, because if you get in that mentality, what you're doing is conceding defeat and bringing that defeat energy along with it. And
Mhm.
so rather than looking at it like that, you have to look at it more like it's a challenge and an opportunity. And all of us now, like you said, we're building a platform. We're early, we're starting, but I see that vision with you, man. I mean, you ever seen what piranhas can do to a cow? You know,
Yeah.
um, there's a force of Cardano people to be reckoned with, and there's governance. What you were saying earlier about how the collective comes together. We have this real opportunity now to make things new, to make things right in a way that they haven't been in the past. And while that all sounds lofty, I mean, there are people that are actually doing it right now in the Cardano ecosystem, building a Cardano constitution, and there's fighting going on, and in all sorts of drama, right? And we'll get into that in another episode. But for now, just know that, like, this is a topic that's important enough for us to discuss today, but it's also an important enough topic for us to continue to work towards fixing for the world every day, every week, month after month, year after year. We're not going anywhere. It's about freedom. It's about freedom for me, for my family, for you and your family, and for everyone else that we know. And yeah, that's it, man. When we have freedom, when we're not being held down, we all have prosperity. There's no The prosperity is the natural state, I
Right.
think.
Right. And these are a lot of gems. Go ahead and drop a 100% if you pick it up on these gems, please. I want some. I want some of that participation because philosopher Dunamis is dropping them right now. I feel like we're speaking. I feel like we're speaking telepathically, and I don't even have to. You just no truer words have been spoken. This is a millisecond by millisecond. This is every opportunity that you have to create words that a have a true meaning behind them, and what that means behind your reflections. To put 100% into every aspect of your life seems very minute. It is actually, but when you again look at it from an apex perspective, how that evolves and what that becomes, it becomes a revolution with. I might be a little overzealous saying this, but there's more purity behind it because there's more authenticity behind it. You can't clone authenticity within the soul. All of that to be said, this is all about your self determination and your efficacy, and how you value yourself in society. And this is also a battle every day of remembering that you are as important as anything around you. You are you are your own brand. Never forget that. This is always going to be something that we're going to have a duality with. We're going to see the light, we're going to see the shadow. We're going to have these moments where we're going to have to make very, very difficult decisions for the longevity and to be able to prosper for yourself and to be in a true state of authenticity. Do you truly attract those that are in cohesion with you to press an agenda that's something that's more enlightening for the masses? My man's, you can't beat that. That's very organic. That's a very organic, and we've put, in the irony of it, going back into our episodes, we have put so many different artificial flavorings into these narratives, and we've poisoned masses with food for thought. Mm.
Mhm.
And it goes into what you eat, what you hear, the fight for music, and what we're doing now here. And
And
this
now
is
it's
ultimate. Yeah,
it's
go
going to
ahead.
build into to self-determination. That's really what the freedom part is about now, right? Is each individual person. We're going to talk about health. We're going to talk, like you said, there's all of these pieces that we've built up to this point, and now self-determination is the act that we're asking our followers, our listeners, to take. We're now asking for you to take action. It's not just a listening anymore. This is now an interactive, right? It is a fight for your freedom. There is a war that's already taking place. We're already in it. It didn't start when fights started. It didn't start when Trump decided to run for office or any of that kind of stuff. It isn't haven't I'm sorry, hasn't even been going on just for the last few years. But what we are in is a literal fight for the freedom of humanity. And what we need to do as individuals is just to start to one bit at a time break down the wall. Just one piece. We started during the election by making these memes and posting these memes on Twitter and making fun of the other side. That was part of what we were doing. We were fighting in the war. A little part, our little piece. Each one of us might be a little infantry soldier or whatever it is. Some others might end up being a captain of a platoon or a general, but we all have a small place in this fight, and it's important for all of us to take action now. It's not just about we're going to continue to learn, we're going to continue to teach, but it's about us also standing together and recognizing that the next time they come around and say, no, you can't do this, or no, you can't go there, or no, we're going to take a little bit more of your freedoms away, that we start putting our foot down and saying, no, it's not going to happen this time.
Right. That's real. Audience, what are you going to do to break the barriers? Let's drop some comments down there. What are you guys going to do to break the barriers? What is your obligations? What do you feel is important? What's your fight?
And what do you do with your freedom? You know, because we have freedom of thought, and you have freedom of movement and freedom of self-determination. What would you like to do with your freedom? I'd like to see that in the comments. You know, what is something that is there a trip that you're going to take? Is there something that you're going to do for yourself or for others because you can? That's it. Just part of what we need to do to keep our freedoms is just to exercise them. You know, as long as we continue to exercise this freedom of speech, it makes it harder for them to take it away.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Dunamis, I really appreciate you, man. Really appreciate you on this one. Yeah, this has been great. Really hope you guys have enjoyed this. This has been episode 4, Fight for Freedom. If you guys made it all the way to the end, go ahead and throw that lions emoji in there. Rawr. Go ahead and throw that for all my lions out there that are really looking at life as a beautiful game of chess and how you move to really seek the royalties of what freedom can truly be in your mind. That's that. I like that. I like that, Dunamis. Cool.
I like that too, man.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to come back here in this next week, I think, and start to talk about the next piece of the puzzle, because I think Cardano is a big part of what we do, what we're building on, what we have planned for the future, and that'll probably be the next thing that we talk about as well. So there's, even though it seems like a lot of the topics we're talking about are disjointed, there's definitely a thread, and we're going to continue to tell the story. And the next piece of the story is going to be a little bit about onboarding. And now that we're asking people to actually take action, to not just listen to podcasts, but actually this fight army has to be able to mobilize at some point and carry out and do things. And so a little bit of wallet knowledge and Cardano and what the ecosystem is will probably come next. But for now, it's about just taking your own self-authority. Like, it's important for us to recognize you each are the author of your life, and you need to write your own story. And the forces that are coming against you, telling you that you can't do it, that you don't have what it takes, that you're never going to be successful, that you can't go from here to there, or you don't have enough money, or you don't have enough talent, we're against that. We're here to say that that's false. We don't agree. You're great. You can achieve great things if you work hard, put your mind to it, and you never give up.
Promises. You got to have actions with your manifestations.
Yeah. Yeah. So until next time, man.
Yeah. Until next time, tune in with us next week. Make sure you jump in here, and we'll be having that reaction here around 10 EST. So make sure you tune in with us as well on that. And you'll be joined by myself, Mr. Dunamis, and our co-host, Seth Too Saucy.
Awesome, man. Never give up the fight.
Never give up the fight.
You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. Looking for change, looking for pain, pulling a mob, pushing a train. I'll never stop, stick to a lane, pick up the pieces and go rearrange. I'll be the best above all the rest, put me to the test, expect nothing less, your check is I'm chess, what's happening next, He got the venom, a tangible weapon, no coming in second. This life is a lesson, he got a new engine from pain, it's a blessing. New focus, no guessing, just bold and obsession, all in his possession. You got their attention, I'll leave an impression and take your redemption. Just kill, no discretion, your mind is a weapon. 11-11, it's time for progression, You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. People like sheep move feet, hurt it easy. You don't wanna be fast asleep when they scheming. Better stand tall, ready for a fight, believe me. When they try the chains, you can say no, free me. So he's been looking for somebody who could save him, instead of searching inside for what they gave him. A strong will, strong mind causes mayhem. We could change the world, change times, rearrange them. Staying on pace, running the race. Life is a chase, I don't want a place, I wanna be first. Work till it hurts, dehydrated thirst till I'm in a hearse. High ambitions in the right mind can take you so far. It's like you lived a few lifetimes. Take off from a break off from the weak minds, they can stay soft. You can change lives, you create thoughts, never waste time. You got one shot, you got one life, better pop off. What do you like? Make a dream job. No 9-5, no mean boss, just my life and free thoughts. You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. People like sheep move feet, hurt it easy. You don't wanna be fast asleep when they scheming. Better stand tall, ready for a fight, believe me. When they try the chains, you can say no, free me.